President Cyril Ramaphosa has acknowledged that the government is 30 years behind in creating a plan for early childhood development. He made the admission this morning during his opening remarks at the Bana Pele Leadership Summit, which is organized by Basic Education and Business Leadership South Africa. The summit aims to create a 2030 plan for universal access to early childhood development. Ramaphosa emphasized that intervening early in a child's life has a significant social impact. The director of the Center for Early Childhood Development, Professor Atmore, joins me now as we get a little bit more into this. Professor Atmore, appreciate the time. If we are 30 years behind, I'm just trying to calculate here, that leaves me at a state in which my early childhood development is still suffering. Can we fix this in just 5 years?
Good afternoon, Arabile, and to your viewers. Look, it's very ambitious. I think we should focus on the fact that it's good that the president has made an admission that it's 30 years overdue. The sad part is that successive governments or successive administrations from 1994 have been approached, spoken to, and we've tried to lobby. And it's only now, 3 decades later, that government has shown signs of listening. Look, we haven't got it right in the first 30 years of democracy. Only about 25% of our children are in a quality early learning center or program. So 5 years is very ambitious, but I will go with it, provided the political will and the budget and competent public officials drive the process. We will be monitoring it as the non-profit sector and as the Center for Early Childhood Development. So it is doable, but it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of political will, and a lot of competence from public officials.
I know there's probably not enough money to be able to do this at all, but 10 billion has been allocated to early childhood development in the budget. Is that a good start at the very least? Does that offer the kind of confidence you suggest is helpful to the cause?
Look, 10 billion sounds a lot, but remember that's 10 billion over 3.3 years. It's 3 years and 3 years and 4 months. It's a medium-term expenditure framework, so it's not 10 billion per year. It's hopelessly inadequate, of course. And, you know, the excuse that the country doesn't have the money, I don't buy that. With the amount of money that's been corrupted away and stolen, we can provide for every single child across the country. At the moment, we've got probably about 4 million children aged birth to 5 who are not in a quality ECD program. And 10 billion over 3 years doesn't go very far. So the first thing the president should do is quadruple that amount. Then I'll start believing that there is the political will.
40 billion at the very least. One wonders where exactly we'd be able to get that as well, considering where we stand. But it certainly would show the political will. Let's just take a step back, if you don't mind, Professor. Let's explain what ECD actually is. What does early childhood development actually mean? I mean, one would think that if you take your child to preschool or preschool and then follow through on all of that, ultimately you've gone through early childhood development. Is that really it?
Look, the first error that people make is that they think that early childhood development is a building or a structure. It's not. It's the processes that children go through from conception all the way till they enter grade 1, and it's now going to be grade R. So it's a critical part of the life cycle. And when you talk about where we're going to get the 40 billion rand from, the cost saving down the line, remember all the costs and all the expenses of children repeating grades, of children falling out of formal schooling, those costs mount up. And the global research tells us that for every dollar invested in an early childhood development quality program, the saving is between $7 and $17 per child per year. So there's a huge financial return. and any businessman would take a 17-to-1 return anytime. So we have to make the investment. We may struggle for 5-10 years, but down the line, we'll see far more children smoothly progressing through school, exiting, ready for the world of work.
So do you think that the problems we currently have right now, particularly when it comes to failure rates, the number of students or pupils who don't make it through the schooling system, is primarily because we've lacked when it comes to early childhood development? Could that be the most important key reason?
Yes, of course. That is the main reason. You know, it covers not only the learning program, but also nutrition. Are children getting sufficient food and sufficient quality food? And all those things accumulate so that when the child enters grade 1, the child has to be confident, the confidence to go to primary school, but also competent. There's certain minimum attributes that a child has to have. And without a doubt, the global research in almost every country where research has been carried out shows that the earlier the investment in education, the greater the return. It's like building a house. You don't build a house from the roof upwards. You get a solid foundation and you then build on that. And I'm afraid over the past 30 years and during the apartheid years, we didn't care for young children and there was no political will. We should have in 1994, as the president has admitted, and it's taken 30 years to acknowledge the errors. He's now admitted it. Now he has to put his mouth where his money is, and he has to put money into early childhood development because the sector is very powerful. There are just on 200,000 predominantly women working in the sector, and they will hold President Ramaphosa to account for what he said this morning, which heartened all of us. We support him fully, but now let's do it.
Yeah, look, they say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So it's time to try and put forward the best sort of methods here. Do we have the right number of, whether it be practitioners, teachers, etc. as well, all those involved in early childhood development? Do we have the right structures in place for it, whether it be educating those that need to educate and help in that early childhood development? Or is it also going to have to be about starting there before we actually get it right with the children themselves?
It's a bit of both. You know, for the first time since democracy, we've got really good data. We now know how many children are in provision. We know how many are thriving in those early years and how many are not. So the two reports, the ECD census and the Thrive by 5 study, forms the basis of us going forward. But on the downside, we still 30 years into democracy do not have an ECD teacher training plan. We don't have a strategy. We don't have a plan for equipping adults who want to or wish to work with young children. We need that teacher training plan. The other things we don't have is we've had over the years just on 30 ECD policy documents, strategies, and plans. But we have not, as a government and as a country, we have not implemented those to any degree. If we take just one, the National Development Plan, there are 12 early childhood development proposals in that plan, which was tabled in Parliament by then Finance Minister Trevor Manuel in 2012. Of those 12 proposals, 1.5 have been partially implemented, and the other 10.5 have not even been touched yet. Now, that's over a period of 13 years. And what we seem to be good for, and this is my fear with the president's speech this morning, we write all these papers and strategies and documents, and we make these speeches, but we do not implement. And civil society has to hold government to account for the implementation. And our advocacy and social justice unit will be doing that, and perhaps more powerfully. Perhaps we must take some responsibility for not being loud enough, vociferous enough, and holding government to account.
Going to be very important to hold them to account from here on in as well. Prof, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us. The Director of the Center for Early Childhood Development, Professor Eric Atmore, they're joining us. The importance of early childhood education and development, following on from President Cyril Ramaphosa's own admission that the country is 30 years behind when it comes to ECD. And hopefully that 10 billion rand that was put forward in the budget is just a start.